Claire tightened her coat as she walked out of the diner. The night was cold, and the streets were empty. Her shift had been long, and she wanted nothing more than to go home to her son Luke, who was waiting for her. She unlocked her old car and started driving slowly through the quiet town. On the side of the road, she noticed a man stumbling. He almost fell against a streetlight. Claire slowed down and looked again. He was tall, dressed in a suit that was wrinkled, his hair messy, and his steps unsteady. At first, she thought she should keep driving, but something in her heart stopped her. She pulled the car near him and rolled the window down. The man lifted his head, and she saw his face. His eyes were glassy, his tie undone. He looked lost. Claire asked if he was all right. He mumbled something she could not understand and leaned against her car. The smell of alcohol told her enough. Claire knew she should not get involved, but leaving him there felt wrong. She stepped out and helped him into the car. He was heavy and almost fell on her, but she managed to push him inside. She asked for his address. His words were slurred, but he handed her his wallet. Inside was an ID with the name Ethan Cole and an expensive apartment address. Driving through the city, Claire kept glancing at him. His head rested against the window. His suit looked expensive, his watch shining even in the dim light. She wondered what kind of man he was, living in a world so far from hers. When she reached the tall apartment building, she helped him out of the car and guided him inside. The guard at the front desk recognized Ethan and let them through. In the elevator, Claire felt nervous. Standing beside a stranger who smelled of whiskey and yet seemed so broken, she got him into his apartment, laid him gently on the couch, and placed a glass of water near him. He opened his eyes for a moment and looked at her as if he wanted to say something. But then he closed them and drifted off. Claire stood there for a while, unsure why she had gone so far to help. Then she left quietly, locking the door behind her. As she drove home to her son, she tried to forget the strange man, not knowing how much he was about to change her life. The week passed in the usual way for Claire. Mornings were busy getting Luke ready for school, and evenings were spent at the diner taking orders, carrying trays and smiling at customers even when she was tired. She had almost forgotten about the drunk man she had helped that night. He was just a stranger, she told herself. Someone she would never see again. But one afternoon, the diner door opened, and a man in a sharp, dark suit stepped in. The light from outside fell on his face, and Claire froze. It was him. Ethan. He walked across the small diner with steady steps. Nothing like the broken figure she had seen on the street. People turned to look at him because he stood out in that place. His suit was perfect, his shoes polished, and his expression calm. Claire forced herself to act normal and walked to his table with a menu. She greeted him politely, hoping he would not remember her. But when his eyes met hers, a small smile touched his lips. "You are the one who helped me," he said in a low. Claire's hand tightened on the menu. "You were in trouble." "Anyone would have done the same," she replied quickly. "No," Ethan said, shaking his head. "Most people would have left me there. You didn't." Claire placed the menu on the table. "What will you have?" she asked, wanting to move the talk away. He ordered coffee, and while she went to get it, he watched her. There was something simple and steady about the way she moved, nothing like the people he was used to. When she brought the coffee, he thanked her and slid a card across the table. "I want to repay you," he said. Claire pushed the card back. "You don't owe me anything, really?" He leaned back, studying her as if trying to understand her. "Then at least let me come here again. I like this place." Claire did not answer, only gave a small nod before leaving his table. But inside, her thoughts raced. Why would a man like him come here again? Why was he looking at her like that, as she carried trays to another table? She felt his eyes still on her, steady and curious. And for the first time in years, her calm life felt unsettled. Ethan began showing up at the diner more often. Sometimes he ordered coffee, sometimes lunch, but each time his eyes searched for Claire. At first she tried to keep her distance. She took his order, brought his food, and left without giving him more than a polite smile. But he never seemed upset by her coldness. Instead, he kept coming back. One evening the diner was quiet, and Ethan sat at the counter while Claire wiped the surface. He broke the silence. "You remind me of someone strong," he said. someone who does not let life push her down. Claire glanced at him. I do what I must. I have my son to think about. He leaned forward slightly. You have a son? She nodded. Luke. He is everything to me. Ethan smiled, and it was softer than she expected. I would like to meet him one day, if that is all right. Claire frowned, unsure how to answer. She had learned not to trust too easily. Men had come and gone, leaving only hurt behind. She told herself Ethan was no different. Still, there was something in his voice, something honest that made her hesitate. As the days passed, Ethan began sharing small pieces of his own life. He told her about the pressure of his company, the endless meetings, the loneliness hidden behind success. Claire listened quietly, surprised at how much he revealed. Luke finally met Ethan when he came to pick Claire up from work. The boy smiled at him right away, and Ethan crouched down to shake his hand. Claire watched as her son laughed at something Ethan said, and her heart tightened. She tried to remind herself that men like Ethan did not stay. Yet deep inside, a small hope began to grow. News spread fast when Ethan's company was caught in a storm. Papers printed his name, reporters waited outside his office, and stories filled the television. Words like fraud and scandal were spoken loudly, though Ethan kept saying he was not guilty. Claire saw the headlines while serving tables at the diner, and her stomach tightened. She feared what people would whisper if they saw her close to him. That evening, Ethan came to the diner as usual. His face was tired, but his eyes still searched for her. Claire brought him coffee without a word. He tried to smile, but she could not return it. You believe them? He said quietly. She shook her head. I do not know what to believe. I only know my son needs a simple life, not one full of trouble. His jaw tightened. I never wanted to bring trouble to you, but you did, she answered, her voice shaking. People are talking. I cannot risk Luke getting dragged into this. Ethan's hands curled into fists on the table. He had faced rivals, courts, and angry shareholders, but her words cut deeper. Claire, please, do not push me away. You are the only real thing in my life. Tears filled her eyes, but she stepped back. Sometimes real is not enough. Sometimes it is safer to walk away. She left his table, leaving the coffee untouched. Ethan sat there for a long time, staring at the empty space where she had stood. For the first time, fear filled him. Not fear of losing his company, but fear of losing her. That night, Claire held Luke close and told herself she was protecting him. But her heart ached, because part of her wanted to believe Ethan. Part of her wanted to trust him, even when the world said she should not. Ethan looked out of his high-rise window, the city lights blurring before his eyes. He thought of Claire's strength, her honesty, and the way she cared for her son. He knew he could not let her go. Not to scandal, not to fear, not to his mistakes. He would fight, not with money or power, but with proof that he could be the man she deserved. Weeks passed, and the storm around Ethan's name began to settle. Evidence came forward that cleared him, and the blame shifted to others in his company. Reporters still tried to chase him, but he no longer cared about their cameras or their questions. The only thing on his mind was Claire, and the wall she had built between them. One evening, he drove to the small diner. Claire was wiping down tables, her apron tied neatly as always. When she saw him walk in, her steps slowed. She had not expected him to return after everything. Ethan stood in front of her. No suit, no polished image, just a man who looked tired but sure of what he wanted. I left that world behind, he said. The company is no longer my life. You and Luke are. Claire's eyes widened. You gave it all up? What good is success if I have no one to share it with? Ethan replied. I want to be here. I want to be the one Luke can count on. I want to be the man you can trust. Her heart raced, torn between fear and hope. She had been let down before, but there was something different now. He was not offering her riches or promises. He was offering steady presence. The bell on the door rang and Luke ran in, smiling when he saw Ethan. The boy rushed over and Ethan crouched to hug him. Claire watched them together, her chest tightening with emotion. Ethan looked up at her while holding Luke's hand. I will not walk away. Not from him. not from you." Silence filled the diner, broken only by the sound of Luke's laughter. Claire stepped closer, her voice soft but steady. "Then stay. Stay and prove it." Ethan rose and took her hand, firm and sure. "I will spend every day proving it." In that moment, Claire felt the fear inside her ease. For the first time, she believed he would keep his word. They stood together with Luke between them, bound not by wealth or power, but by a bond stronger than either had ever known. It was not chance that brought them together. It was fate tying their lives with a string they could never break.